Waiting for the red box. There it is.
There you go.
How you guys doing today?
Doing good.
Have a good
All right.
have a good Sunday. Good Sunday? Yeah.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah.
nap. It's a great Sunday.
Did you
Oh,
eat
good.
good today? That's what I want to know. Did you eat something good today? Was this a Sunday where you had like a big Sunday dinner kind of thing? No,
Not yet.
no. That next week? No.
Oh,
Oh,
Is there a standard resurrection Sunday meal?
oh no,
we might
no.
want
We
to
don't do
save
that.
that for the show.
Oh, do you do
No,
that?
maybe not.
Okay, so Andrew, do you do that? Do you have like a big
We
dinner?
used to. We
Okay,
used to when my parents were alive. Yeah,
okay.
the Easter meal. Well, we were Easter then. We weren't Resurrection Sunday then. Uh,
Right.
but we, yeah, it was just like there was a standard Thanksgiving, standard Christmas, and standard Sunday Resurrection Easter meal.
So I think
I
my
have
older
to.
sister does that. But more specifically, she'll send out like Easter gift boxes
Oh,
to
really?
like she's always done that for my kids, which is interesting because like I said, I never celebrated it like that, but she did. And like my son is 20, my kids are 27, 25, something 27, 25, 22, 23, or something like that, but they still get boxes. And I'm like, oh, that is really sweet. You don't have to do that. They're adults. They can take care
Right.
of themselves. Send them a card. That'll
They may still look forward to those boxes, don't they?
They
maybe.
probably do.
Probably, but I just, as a mom, I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. You're a really cool aunt. So kudos for you. But I'm like, you do
All right,
realize they're
everybody.
27.
Is
So,
it time already? Okay,
yeah.
we get
Yeah.
chatted right away. Okay, go ahead, Alan. Get us started.
You guys have a good show. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Well, happy Sunday, everybody.
Happy Sunday.
Welcome to Authors Up. I got a crazy shadow here. I don't know what. Let me see if I turn it there. There, I think
You're
that's a
good.
little bit better. That's a little bit better. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, Ruth. How are
Good
you?
evening. Good. How are you?
I'm good. And Victoria, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you beautiful ladies doing tonight
Good. We good. We
Doing
good.
good.
on this Palm Sunday?
Oh,
hmm
Palm.
well, good evening. Miss Lynn is here with us this evening. Good evening.
Hello.
And Minister Angie O from South Carolina is on with us. And Alan, if we get any countries popping in, we do appreciate it when you put them up on the screen so that we can formally welcome them to being with us
Absolutely.
on Authors Up. And we're going to start like we usually do. We were chatting so much before the program started. I forgot where we were.
Okay.
It was a little lengthy this Sunday night, but we're gonna do our weekend review. And I was gonna go first this time, especially since I forgot to send you the template for tonight, and I didn't want to catch anybody off guard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
straight with that. And you're next, Victoria.
I did read that part.
Did you see it? After that, Ms. Ruth will
Yep.
give us her weekend review, and then I'll come back and kind of get us started on our topic tonight. But
Okay.
last week was a busy week for me. And if it was a busy week for me, it was a busy week for Ruth. Because whenever I get stuck on what I'm supposed to be doing, that's my go-to. So it was a busy week, and Alan's going to put up a little graphic, and it'll help explain why it was a busy week. Just got a lot going on. There it is. It is getting ready. Books are about to be ordered, and in everything for reading for His Glory on Saturday, April the 29th.
Now, is that 2 books?
Yes, ma'am.
Two at the same time.
2 at the same time.
Shut the front and the back door.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right.
And it is so is the book from 8 at 8. The writings from 8 at 8. I kind of
Okay.
ask the folks who come on regularly. Thank you, Lynn. If they would like, some of those compiled together, and they said yes, they would. So I did that and decided to do it in volumes because there are approximately 52 weeks in a year. 3 times 2, 3, 5, about 150 new ones every year.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you got plenty of material.
Yeah, not gonna put them all in a book, but the ones that seem to be favorites or the people like a lot or have good commentary with them.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. And Masters of the Mask, I don't even want to talk about Masters of the Mask. That's a surprise one. That's a surprise one.
Okay.
So come on out on the 29th. See what that's all about. But I thank Miss Ruth. She is an awesome publisher and editor and all those things. And she keeps me in check and helps me not go off the deep end too often. And she's very patient with me. So Ruth, I publicly thank you in advance.
You are welcome.
Done to help to put this together. So I'll be talking more about those books as we go along, but everything really comes out tomorrow because the newsletter will come out tomorrow. Information in it is in the newsletter, and I'll be sending invitations out via text and email and all that good stuff. So I'm excited. So that was what my week was all. And when I say that's what my week was all about, that's what my week was all about. So, glad to get to that point. So we'll see where we go from here. So that was my weekend review. Yeah. How about you, Victoria? You spending time with your mommy. For those who don't know, she's not even here.
I am in Indianapolis, Indiana. Yeah, mouthful, right? Mm-hmm. And I have been here since last Saturday night, and I have extended my trip another week. So it's been a pretty exciting time too. My siblings, spending time with my siblings, my older brother, and then my sister came, but she left on Friday night before we had these storms. And we are, making some decisions and helping take care of our mom, who will be 90 in October. Wow. And she's still living on her own, but we have to, put some things in place to help her. And so, it's I am in what they call that sandwich generation, where I'm still caring for my almost adult kids, but I'm also caring for my, elderly parent, and it's just me in between. trying to take care of myself too. So it's been interesting to say the least. And we had a little bad weather Friday night, and I tell you, I had to call on Jesus. I had to call on Jesus because those storms that have hit Arkansas and all that kind of came up this way, and I never heard it before. Really, I heard sirens. I heard sirens.
Ooh.
And I was kind of unnerved, to say the least. And I called my brother, and I said, "Wait a minute, Indiana, I had some sirens. What's going on?" He said, "Those sirens are just to warn you that tornado weather, it's like a warning." I said, "Wait a minute, but where I come from in North Carolina, when you hear the sirens, that means it is a tornado. So what's going on? What's going on? What should I do?" My mother's apartment is on the 3rd floor. And I'm like, "What should I do?" He said, "Well, where's mommy?" I said, "She's asleep." She knocked out, slept through the whole thing. Then he hit a sign, nothing. I said, "Mommy's sleep." He said, "Well, you go to sleep too." And I said, "Sleep." "Well, you know what? Goodbye. You ain't no help. I'm going to go talk to Jesus." So I said, "Jesus? Okay. Yeah, okay. You see mommy sleep. So she like you in the boat right about now. So I need to calm it down and just say, peace, be still." And I said, "God, you got your hand on us." I just started praying for people because in the surrounding counties, 2 tornadoes did touch down. Well, 3. But Indiana was untouched. So but that rain was hard, and the wind, y'all, it just was, like I said, unnerving. But I hadn't experienced anything that bad since Hurricane Fran.
Oh,
Yeah.
we'll even talk about Fran.
Okay. So it was, whew, but
Yeah.
God kept us. God kept us. So that was my excitement for last week. I'll be here another week, so y'all pray for my traveling on. I'll be coming home Friday night. So,
Okay.
we're just in the middle of making some decisions, and stay tuned.
Okay. Okay. Well, Miss Ruth, what was going on with you other than me?
Okay, so apparently my new expertise skill set is podcasts. So
Woo!
I will be hosting a podcast for work, all things judicial. So anywhere you get your podcast, you can download it. It is the official podcast for the North Carolina Judicial Branch.
Look
Um,
at you.
I know, right?
Oh, nice. Good for you. For real.
So we are so I work for the Guardian Ad Litem program.
Right.
Awesome organization. Volunteers who represent abused and neglected children in the courts. And we had, because April is Child Advocate Month, we had some volunteers come in to give, share their stories. And I was able to facilitate and moderate that. And I promise you, just sitting in the room with them, hearing their stories, their whys, it was just amazing. Just amazing. So, the podcast will be coming out, I think, week after next, and I will let you guys know. But yeah, it's apparently that's my thing now. So I'll be podcast hopping.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Because I'll be doing another one in a couple of weeks, because we also have attorneys who represent these children. So we'll be interviewing them and just hearing what they do and how they offer their services for that.
And
Well,
and,
good for
and
you.
what month did you say this was?
It is April,
No. Child something you said.
Child Advocate Month. We
Child
celebrate our child
advocacy
advocates.
month. I
Yes.
didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay.
I think that is a North Carolina thing.
Okay.
Either way, it's a good thing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
that's what I spent my week doing. So, Andrea, we have you to do the template. We have Victoria, cheerlead, everybody split up I was doing all of it, and I'm not going to say all of it. No, because we have awesome tech at work, and he definitely helped out. He's going to be editing it, and I'm like, okay, great. But I was the one writing everything and planning and sending
Right.
out questions and moderating, and I was like, okay,
It's fun though.
it's fun. It is.
Good.
It
Yeah.
is. It really is. And you learn so much.
Mhm.
When you are able to really talk to folks
Oh yeah,
from that perspective. That's cool.
it is.
That is
It
cool.
is. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
That's great. That's great. Good evening. Linda Cooks is on with us tonight, and Paula Obi, new author and co-author. Paula Obi
Yes.
with us tonight. Glad to have you, Paula. Wow, that's really something, Ruth. I like that.
Okay.
I like that. I
Thank
want to keep up with some of those.
Mhm.
Well, for tonight, it's just us.
Mhm.
And we actually, well, let me tell you how this started. In the journaling challenge that we just finished, and we thank everybody who participated in that. But in the journaling challenge, we talked about good evening, Jamaica.
I'm Jamaica.
Glad to have you. Glad to have you. We talked about reasons for journaling, and we talked about the benefits of journaling. And among those was that journaling is healthy for you, mentally, can be mentally healthy for you, physically healthy for you. So we were talking about that, and we came to a point in the discussion about when you pen past the pain,
Mhm.
and both. I have not had that experience yet, and we can talk about that a little bit later. But
She said yet.
Ruth and Victoria have. Ruth finished her book, and Victoria is in the throes of hers. And we just decided that we would talk a little bit about when you are penning past the pain, when you're writing your story, and your story is taking you into painful places. So I'm
Yes.
going to ask each of them tonight to tell us a little bit about what their books are about. And then I want to ask some questions about this whole issue of pain, writing being therapeutic, and writing helping you to get past the painful places in your life story. So I'm going to start with you, Ruth, because your book is completed. I think it's doing well. And when love is angry, So just I don't want you to talk about the journey so much yet. I just want you to give people a synopsis of
Sure.
what your book was about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the book, When Love is Angry, is a chronicle of my marriage from really the time that I was diagnosed with bipolar 2, I think. I forget now, sorry. But how it affected our marriage. And it's written from my husband's and mine perspective. So you get to hear from his side and you get to hear from my side, from the time of my diagnosis to the time of when everything seemed to fall apart to the time that we began healing and how we've overcome that. So it is our journey, our chronicle of that journey.
Okay. Now, Victoria, you are in the midst of yours.
Mhm.
I don't know whether you've even come up with a name for it yet, or
I
you
have.
call it. Oh, okay. What
Okay,
are
well,
you gonna call it? What are you gonna call
It
it?
is Dynamic Disability, My Fibromyalgia Story.
Okay.
And it too chronicles from when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia up until present day. So
mhm.
Okay.
it will tell the story of how I felt when I was diagnosed, give a definition of what fibromyalgia is, how it has affected my life, how it has affected my family's life, and just some of the medical issues that I've gone through since being diagnosed. And I believe it is a much needed story to tell, because I didn't see in the Black community, when I went looking for resources, I didn't see many stories of people like me who went through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to tell it, and it's very interesting, to say the least.
Okay, that's one of the questions that I wanted to ask you guys, and you answered it for me. Your core,
Okay.
your core reason for wanting to write it, and that seemed to be your core reason, was looking for resources yourself or information yourself, and not
Right.
finding anything there. Ruth,
Right.
what was your core? What was at the core of why you wrote
Yeah.
Love is Angry? Other than the fact that Maurice said to, because he was more on board at first than you were.
Oh,
I
absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? The thing is, having gone through what I've been through, because you don't get to the lowest point in your life, pick yourself up and start doing better without knowing that eventually you're going to tell your story. And I knew eventually I would write it. But in my
Mm.
brain, I was like, well, I'll do it this way, and I will do it this way, and I will include that. And God said, no, just follow Maurice. And truly, it has, by hearing both sides of it, it has brought a balance to this experience. Because the truth is, and Andrea, I know you say it all the time, we're not the only players in our story.
That's right.
Right.
We're not the only people going through this experience, and it wasn't just me. Oh, I have bipolar 2. Oh, I'm depressed. I'm this, I'm that. No, it was also my husband who was going through his own thing, and then my kids, having to experience that. So it was, I knew as I was coming out of the worst of it that I would eventually tell it. And when my husband presented me with his side of the manuscript and said, your turn, I was okay to the degree that I had already said yes to God. I had
Mhm.
already said, yes, I will tell my story. But it was because I knew it needed to be told. I knew that I had something that other people needed to hear. Because for me, the longest thing, I grew up um, in religion. So I want to put it that way because I wasn't always in church. My grandmother was very religious, but she was also sick. She had schizophrenia, so there was a lot of imbalance there. My mother was not in church, but she was religious. So when you speak of God, when you speak of healing, it's often, oh, someone had cancer, they got healed. Someone had this, they got healed. They had this chronic illness, they got healed. But none of that was ever, someone had a mental illness and they got healed. I knew I had to tell my story so that someone else could hear it who has a mental illness and could say, you know what? That applies to me too, because I had never heard it. So for the longest time, I was like, okay, God can heal cancer, but obviously bipolar and schizophrenia is too hard for him.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I
Right.
knew that needed to be
Right.
told. And I was
Right.
okay doing it. I was okay saying that I was okay doing it. The process was a little different.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Let me ask you this, because and it may seem like a silly question, I hope it doesn't, but we in the when we started doing the journaling challenge, and they were saying about how writing can help you mentally and physically
mhm.
and all of those things. What do you think it is, or what have you found in your writing journey with these two issues? What makes it healthy for you? Why do you think that when you're writing, about things that are so painful, that's a healthy thing, and that's therapeutic. Now, I know that when I read it, they were saying that when you're doing it from a therapy standpoint, there is a guide, if you will, as to
Mhm.
how you write and what you write and all of that. But the reason I'm asking is because typically, when you are writing anything that involves you, it's not a fictional thing, it is your memoir, your
Mhm.
whatever that you want to call it, you're reliving
Mhm.
part of that.
Mhm.
So, how do you manage to pin that painful part or pin through that painful part without it throwing you back into places that you don't really want to relive? Am I making sense?
Yes. And Victoria, I'm going to jump in here and you can add your 2 cents because I see you shaking your head. You
Yeah.
can't. You
Right.
cannot. You cannot. And that's the thing, because I will say this much. When Maurice approached me with the manuscript, I have been journaling now for about almost 40 years. Um, so a lot of the material, now I've been journaling consistently for about 20, but a lot of the materials that went into the book were already in my journal. So they
Okay.
were written down in real time. They
Yeah.
were written down and my emotions poured out on the page. So for your first question, it can be therapeutic because you're getting this stuff out of you.
Out.
You're
Okay.
getting these emotions. You're expressing your
Right.
emotions. You're acknowledging your emotions. And that's the thing I think, we've come to this place in society where I'm making a general statement here. We judge each other for our emotions, but the truth is we need to be able to acknowledge them, and we need to be able to say, okay, you know what? I was upset in that moment, and that's okay. I was happy in that moment. I was sad in that moment. We need to acknowledge those emotions, and then we need to do something about them. If you're angry, there's somebody you need to talk to. If you're depressed, hey, this is my plan for when I'm depressed. I need to go do this, this, or this. So
Mhm.
that was the journaling part. Now, when Maurice gave me the manuscript and he said, "Here, your turn, tag, you're it," um, there was no question about it that yeah, you're gonna relive that. And honestly, I said, "Oh, okay." And then I put the manuscript aside for 6 months. I said, I'm not in a place where I'm gonna do this because I know what happened in the last 25 years.
Mhm.
I don't want to relive that again.
Mhm.
And the truth was, the moment I started, all those emotions came back. And there were nights because I did it during the NaNoWriMo challenge because I figured that was the only way I was going to be able to
I did.
get the story out was
Mm.
if I was on a schedule and I
Yeah.
had to do it. So I did it and I steeled myself up, and there were nights that I was typing through tears. And I would
Yep.
have to stop, compose myself, and then just keep going. Because the truth is, those emotions are part of you,
Right.
but the thing was, honestly, and I was sitting here looking through my book, I can read that now without getting upset. I
Mhm.
can see that and I'll be like, oh yeah, I did. But I'm okay with those emotions. Now there have been times where I will cry about some of the stuff that happened, but not like
Like
I did
before.
before. Yeah. So
There's
Victoria, go ahead and add to that.
there's something that and I don't have my pen handy, so one of you is going to have to write it down for me so that I don't forget, because there's something in typing through tears.
Mhm.
I don't know whether it's about to be a poem, but it's about to be something, so I don't want to forget, because I
I'm
trust
writing it down.
you said it. So
I can't reach my pen on my journal right now.
I
Bruce,
got it.
Bruce got it. Okay. Thank
You
you.
know, I was going to say, the same thing. I wish that I had the benefit of writing this story, looking back at journals, because I
Mhm.
didn't do it then. I wasn't journaling then. I was just pushing through. And Ruth, you did a wonderful thing. At least you have something to go back to touch bases on this. I'm doing mine from memory, right? And I'm doing it from a painful place because I'm not quite through it yet, but I had to go back, and I have been typing through tears as well. And it has been difficult, and I have to admit that I have let the emotional part of it overwhelm me to the part that I stopped. And let me go back a few years ago. I lost a very dear friend, and we talked about this before on the show. I was so devastated that I did not write. I stopped writing the blog. I just stopped writing, period, because I just couldn't. I couldn't fathom writing how bad I felt. So I didn't write. And now I wish I had, because I know now that for me, and I think for you guys too, writing is healing for me. And when I use writing to get out of me, because I do have anxiety, depression myself. I do have those moments when my head is just swirling, right? And writing helps get those thoughts out of my head. And I just could, get it out, write it on paper, and I read what I've written and try to make some sense of what I'm feeling. And so I wish I had done that. But this project is so different from my first projects, which were just writing what God gave me, a word from something as simple as something somebody said, or a sermon, or a song lyric. And God just gave me something, a words of encouragement for somebody. But this project, my fibromyalgia story, is my story, my heart. And it peels back those tender moments when those things that I never thought I would show to the world. But I absolutely understand that in order to help somebody else, you have to be as transparent as you can be. There's just no way around it. There's just no way around. You have to be transparent. You have to tell somebody what your pain actually looked like, because there is someone else out there who's probably going through the same things, and they don't know how to articulate it. And so for me to be able to do that is going to release somebody else. And I know that, and I understand that now. And, it's just like I have a scar on my chest. I don't know if everybody could see it. But I'm going to liken my journey now to this scar here. I absolutely hate this scar. I do. Because, in my vanity, you don't want a scar like this. But what happened was a few weeks ago, a month or so ago, they thought something was wrong with my heart. So I was given a heart monitor, which was a wireless heart monitor. And the glue from the heart monitor must have I had some allergic reaction to it, and it has left this horrible scar. And I was talking to my friend Leah one day, and I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this scar did it." And she said, "Vic, our scars are proof that we overcame something." I said, "Girl, that was a word right there." A word. I said, again, from now on, I'm not going to complain about this scar. So if anybody asks me what happened, this scar is proof that there is nothing wrong with my heart.
Yeah.
And so now I liken the telling of my fibromyalgia story as proof of all that I've overcome, because I was diagnosed in 2008. And I have to be real about everything I went through, the things that I did and the things that I did not do, because I don't believe that I sought God for healing as I should have too. So I've got to be honest about all that. And I know, and I already know it's going to help somebody else. And so Elder said something last week that has stuck in my brain all week. It's not for me. It's not about me. It's just absolutely not about me. While it is about me, it's not about me. It's for somebody else. And so if I keep that as my focus, I am learning to write better through my pain. And that's where I'm at today.
And that's a good place. That's a good place. That's good, Victoria. I did want to ask you all too, when we talk about the story and the story not just being your story, as
Mhm.
both of you have mentioned, you got kids.
Yes.
Maurice began the journey up there with you with When Love is Angry. But how do you handle and at what point when you have children who are an integral part of the story or a spouse who is an integral part. Now in your case it's a little different because Maurice was looking for you to add that other side,
Mhm.
but a lot of times that's not the case. And the spouse or partner is very much a part of the story, but they are not an integral part of writing the story.
Right.
How do you approach the other characters in this play, and at what time do you tell them when you are thinking about writing? Do you wait until you are at the point where they are really involved in what the story is that you're telling, or do you wait till it's done and say, about to be a bestseller, maybe you need to read this before. You might want to read this beforehand.
I'll answer that one first because mine
Go ahead.
involves more than Ruth. Well, in while I was writing it, I didn't start out intending to involve them, but after I was, I don't even know at what point, but I had written, I had all the outline done, and I had the different chapters going, and I knew what I wanted to write in each section. And I would just want to say, God, I guess God impressed me that this wasn't just my story to tell because they were in the thick of it with me. They've seen the days when I didn't feel well. There's days when they had to fix something for me, days when they've seen the fatigue and they have experienced when I could not come to the function or I just couldn't go here or couldn't go there, I couldn't go out to dinner, couldn't really be a wife to my husband because I didn't feel well. And so I asked each of them to write something for me to be included in the book. And to date, only one of the four has done it, but they're going to do it. I asked Greg to write how he felt watching me go through this, and he has agreed to do that. And we are separated now, and we'll be getting divorced. But I do think that what I went through physically has influenced my marriage. And then that's just honest. But my youngest one has written and wrote about 800 words, which I've already included. And it absolutely made me cry because I didn't know that that's how they felt. But it's important to tell it in this book how it affected everybody. And so my oldest two have said they're going to, and Greg said they're going to as well. So their thoughts will be included in the book as well. And I just think it's important to tell from their perspective because they watched it.
Mhm. Mhm.
To add to that, I would say because again, I included or Maurice wrote his part. The kids got a mention, and actually, two of my three kids have read the book. Two of them
Oh,
are not readers, so she was like, thanks. I know you guys were good." So, but I felt like they were okay with it.
mhm.
Now I'll say it from this perspective, just to answer your question, because each process is different. And again, what we're putting down on paper, we have to understand that this is our truth. Now, we do take care to, the people that we include in the story. You know, I think that this is something that you need to consider as you write.
Mhm.
The book that I'm currently working on, even though it's fiction, it draws heavily from my family,
Mhm.
from their lives.
Right.
And one of the things that I'm doing, two of the things that this is part of the process of what I'm doing. Number one, for like my kids influence a lot of the characters in there. So I've been going to them and saying, okay, tell me what your thought process was through this. I'm writing a book, I'm including you in it. as this character. Let me know what your thoughts were. I want, your feedback. Of course, there are some other characters I'm sitting there thinking, okay, eventually I'm going to have to let them read what I'm writing because, they may perceive it differently. So it's, there is a balance, whether they include
Mhm.
their words in it, their opinions. Like
Mhm.
Victoria said, they may get to include their part of the story in it. So it
Right.
just depends on how much you're doing, how much you're
Mhm.
including other people, you know, and again, like it was with our book, Maurice and I both got our say. Our kids were included to the degree that they were participants at the time. But, for them it was just like, oh, okay, mom and dad, great. Um, so it's just, understand what your story is, understand what your truth is, and then
Mhm.
you can determine, the level of inclusivity for for the secondary characters, so to speak.
Right. 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 Right.
And I was going to ask about that, like how transparent is transparent, you know, how because sometimes you may get to a point of saying, "Ooh, I'm not sure I want to go quite that deep, or I don't want to be quite that open." And I think sometimes those are choices that you have to make. I mean, not to the point that you want to fabricate uh,
Right.
any
Right.
what you're going through or gloss over how painful it may have been
Mhm.
at the time. But I do still think that you have to consider, is my truth going to cause emotional harm to
Right.
someone
Mhm.
else,
Right.
and make that decision.
Yeah,
Agree? You agree?
I
I
Okay.
agree.
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 Mm.
I agree. And I
Agree.
think, the thing is, when you start writing your book, it is not about including every detail. There were some details of our marriage that we did not put in the book because
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
didn't affect
Mhm.
the point that we were trying to make.
Right.
Right.
And that's when you start developing your story, when you start writing it, you you have to determine, okay, detail does it back up what I'm trying to say?
Right.
When we write a story, we have a character, we don't say, okay, she got up in the morning, she went to the bathroom, used it, washed her face, brushed her teeth. No, we say, then she got a cup of coffee, and then, she put her underwear on, she put her pants on, she put her shirt on. No,
No,
we don't go into that level because it does not support the story.
Right. Right.
right.
So,
Right.
she got up, got ready for work, grabbed her coffee on the way out, and bam, her day started.
There you go. I,
So
Okay.
I
that
concur. I concur.
yes.
My story is not such that either. It is very clear that it is how I felt and how fibromyalgia affected me.
Mhm.
Um, my pains and aches and good days and bad days, and that's why I wanted to include their part, but I wanted it to be in their words.
Hmm.
Um, and whatever their truth is, I am not going to sugarcoat it.
Mhm.
Like I said, my youngest one, I'm going to edit it for spelling, whatever. But
Grammar.
whatever they wrote is whatever it's going to be, just how they felt it, because it's their feelings and thoughts towards the whole situation. So,
Mhm. Now I've got one more, and actually, this is probably going to be our last question of the night. It's almost a quarter
oh
of.
my goodness,
Yes, time goes
Yeah, we
really
can talk.
fast.
We can
wow.
talk.
But here's a question for you. And what parts of the book were most difficult? Let me explain what
Mhm.
I want out of this question. Uh,
Okay.
what parts of the book were the most difficult? The places you already knew the pain, or the places where you discovered the pain?
That's a good question.
Because I think sometimes when we write,
Yeah.
particularly if you have been living at a place of suppression, because there, There's some things that I don't want to relive them. I don't want to talk about them. I ain't trying to help you.
I ain't going there.
I'm just not going to play on that field. We're not going to go there. We're not going to do that. But sometimes, because I had an incident happen, this wasn't a writing thing, but I had an incident happen where I was traveling somewhere and I was actually getting ready to speak. And the person riding with me said something to me that took me back. I mean, like a rubber band, took me back to my childhood, painful memories of my childhood, with what we would consider bullying now and not being liked and unkind things that were said. And I thought, man, I thought I was over that, you know,
Right.
that I had cleared all that up in my head and, you know, all that other stuff. And I hadn't. And I know that we always say that you can't conquer what you won't confront. But sometimes as you peel that onion, as Victoria was saying, we start pulling back those layers, we might discover some things that were, you know, gosh, I thought I had dealt with that, and it's more painful than I think. So when you're dealing with those two things, the issue of the trauma, the pain, the things that you already know what's there, versus the things that you discover along the way. Do you handle them differently? Or do you just take the pen and pen past it?
I'll take it. Yes, you handle them differently. And I will say this because you already know what you went through. You
Right.
know how much that hurt,
Right.
and you don't want to feel that again. So you hold off, and that becomes fear. So already now you have pain and fear, and I feel like that one is that part of you. It's not necessarily that it's any worse than writing through and discovering, oh, wow, you know, this is something new. This is something I didn't see before. You know, you're dealing with that in the moment. But when you're sitting there going, okay, I went through this before, I didn't like it back then, I don't want to go through it again, it becomes fear. And now you're agitated. Now you're stressed. Now you know, your adrenaline is going and you're just like, I don't want to deal with that again because that's already imprinted on you and you don't want to imprint it again. You just want to forget. You just want to put it away and go, oh, I'm healed. I'm good. I don't want to share my story. You know, but the truth is, you know, once, and that's why I say it is therapeutic to write it down. You know, the fact that my story is now in a book form, I can go back through it, I can read it, and it hurts less. It hurts a lot less
Yes. Okay.
because I've actually dealt with it and I can understand, you know what? I can revisit that and yeah, it hurt. Yeah, I cried, but I'm okay beyond it. And I can share my story now, you know, and the things that I learned.
Choice.
What's that?
And you've made the choice.
Yes, I've made that choice, you know, and the things that I learned through it now become a part of that story I tell. So to me, the former is a lot scarier than, you know, some of the things that I discovered along the way in telling that story.
Gotcha.
And for me, I'm going to have to say, and I'll do it real quickly. For me, I'm going to say both. Both are equally as touchy because I had suppressed how I felt when I first got my walker until we had our guest about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
And I was like, wow. And I have now had to go back and include because it brought it all up. But that is also a part of the story that has to be told because I don't remember the day I got it, but I do remember, like, I don't remember the date, but I remember the day. I remember how I felt, how it made me feel broken, and how I had to deal with learning to use the walker. So So it was, and I had totally put that away. It was not a part of the story until that came up that week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's a touchy spot, but I have to go there too.
Well, I tell you what, this has been interesting for me. I hope it has been for our listeners and viewers as well. It really does show that the writing process is so much more than just putting words down on paper. It's so much more than just a word count. It's so much more than, I want to do this and I want to get it finished by this deadline. There are healing properties
Yes.
in the writing, that you can't ignore. And sometimes, it may not end up being a book. It may not end up being that. But clearly, at least you may not feel that way at the moment or in the moment. And I don't know at what point you decide that it is going to be a book. I think I've heard from both of you, and I hear from other authors, all the time when we interview people, that it's just time. You just seem to know when it's time to tell the story.
Yes.
It's
Right.
not always when it's happening. It's not always in act one, and it's not always in act three. You just, as you're living your life. And I think as you get stronger in dealing with whatever those things are that you have to overcome or that are painful or any of that, then you get to a place of saying, you know what, somebody else, I'm not the only one.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of times that comes because somewhere in the journey you feel like you are.
Right.
You feel like nobody's going through this but me. Nobody's going through this like me. So it almost to say it's not going to be of value or benefit to anyone. But then when you get to that point of saying, if I'm going through this, if I'm having these thoughts, if I'm having this trouble, I can't be the only one.
Right.
Maybe somebody else can be helped by what it is that I have to say.
Yes.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate you guests being
Yeah.
willing to share.
Thank you. Thank you. You are an awesome moderator.
And we didn't get to ask you, when are you going to ever write some of your stories? But
I,
now,
I don't know that I am. I don't know that. And I thought
right.
about that when we were going to do this program. I don't know that the places that have put me in an area of feeling broken or feeling really painful, I don't have any desire to share. I don't really see the help on the other side. I don't see or feel any of that. So I doubt that I will. Not, which is not to say there has not been trauma, pain, and all that,
I
because
th-
there has been.
I
Um,
think as your publisher, I have to say that you are already doing that with all the books that you've written. You know, oftentimes and I've written what 6, 7 books before this one came out, and each one of those had a part of me in it.
Yes.
And I can
Yes.
tell you that people have been touched by those books, even though there's fiction.
Right.
So the truth is, you know what? And for anyone listening, and I know we are long on time for today, for
I
anyone
know.
listening, however you choose to tell your story,
Yes.
there are some painful places that may come out because I put my characters through some ringers. And it was, honestly, it was almost painful writing those scenes. But the
Right.
truth is, you know what? Part of you comes out in that. And
Exactly.
Andrea, I will say that you don't need to write a memoir to share who you
no.
are and to share what you've overcome and what you've been through. So you have my
Right.
permission to
And
write it. Now, if that says otherwise, you on the hook for that one.
somebody, it was funny. One of my little pocket books that I do is called Just Because I'm His.
Mhm.
And it's just a little story that says, when I was in pain or when I had doctor's reports that I couldn't get by and blah, 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 I made it through just because I'm his,
Mhm.
and it just mentioned all these scenarios. And one lady came back to me afterwards and she said, I had no idea your life had been so hard. And I thought, what? What are you talking about? And I just said, I hope you enjoyed it. I didn't know what to say. So when you started out by saying you're in that, and I thought, well, people think I'm in it whether I'm in it or
Not even in it, right? Wasn't even talk about yourself.
not.
Mhm.
Yes, you was.
I had convinced her, even though, it wasn't my intent to go in that direction. But
It just comes out. It just comes out.
yeah. I appreciate you all sharing from this side, because I think that we get a lot from authors who are sharing their story, their real life
Mhm.
traumas and things, and some of it's got to be hard. I mean, it's just got to be hard to do, but comes out to be something that really, really helps
Mhm.
the reader, and that's a good thing. That's a
Yep.
good thing. So I think Victoria's frozen.
Well, that's a good face to be frozen on.
I
That's all
know
right.
she's so pretty.
She is.
But that is it. That's it for us for tonight. I hope everybody who has tuned in has enjoyed it, and we will be replaying this on Saturday at 7 p.m.
Yes.
For those of you who may have friends that could benefit from it or would enjoy hearing it,
Sure.
please have them tune in. And Ruth, we don't have anything from Victoria in terms of final comments for the night. But if you have a final comment, tell everybody where they can talk to us and find us and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. So, if you have any questions about the show, if you are curious to see how you can be a guest on the show, you can email us at authorsup@gmail.com. You can follow us on social media. You can follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and even on YouTube. So, we upload the show. You can watch it on YouTube or you can download the podcast. Just search for Authors Up Show on any of those platforms.
All righty, all righty. Victoria, do you have any wrap up comment for us?
No, I love you guys. That's all.
Love you too.
It's a challenge, I know, but you come through like a champ every week.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
We love you. We love you. We love you. And that's it. That's it for
That's
us
it.
for tonight. Thank you all for joining. Be sure to come back next week. We will be right. Well, we will not be live, but there will be a show next week. So if you want to tune in, we invite you to do exactly that.
Absolutely.
And other than that, that is it. That is it. That is it again. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you again soon. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
God
Victoria,
bless.
night, Ruth.
Night, Brian.
Good night.